Hello, this is Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking talking shit with Eagle, episode 690. We have a return visit from our friend Mr. Joe, King of the Nepal. How you doing, Joe? You want to tell us how you're doing and
I'm
where
doing
they can
good.
find you?
I'm up late tonight. I've been waiting for someone that didn't show up, but I'm here. Uh, uh, I've got some new news. I just got off the phone with a friend of mine in Thailand. Thailand is completely wide open now, but they're only selling crappy weed. And I guess the Dutch have given them a bunch of plants, a million plants to give away, and are giving seeds away or selling seeds, but not higher than 2% THC. So you're going into the shops there and you're buying garbage, and the Dutch are selling garbage, and so the rules have to change where people can go there and enjoy, but it's not there yet. But anyway, you know I really want to thank people who went to my website and ordered up nutrients, dripstone, and I've also got a lot of seed orders from that last show, and I want to thank everybody for the support. Uh, you know, I went to a hash making facility, and they had hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment. And like I said before, that whole Frenchy cannoli scam from Mila and the people in Holland was a big ripoff. They went and they sold fresh frozen. The only thing that I can really explain it to is like in New York on the west side, we had the meat packing area, and they had huge freezers with hanging meat, and then they would cut the meat up and then sell it deliver it to the restaurants. Well, that's how they're keeping the weed. They're fresh. They have machines that fresh freeze it, and then they keep it in these cold lockers that are solid cold. Now they've admitted that there's a difference of quality when you go in, when it goes in, and then when it finally goes out. It's not smokable, really. They say that it is, but it's not. Uh, uh, and that's an example of misinformation and really people not knowing what they're doing. You have these guys that have a lot of money that are buying these big machines, thinking that they're hash makers and washers and this and that, all to be processed through bags, which lose 30% right off the top, right? When in the 70s, when we started running Thai weed from Thailand, that was a problem because either you had an air freight scam where it got sent out and then taken off the plane and it got to your hands clandestinely. But most of the shipments that came out of Thailand were sent by ship, and you have to grow it, cure it, dry it, pack it, send it to the States. By the time you get it to the States, it could be 6 months or a year down the road. I mean, there were some people that had warehouses in the Philippines, and they would ship from Thailand to the Philippines, and then the motherships would go and pick up in the Philippines, right? But they had to find a way to pack the weed and so that it would arrive fresh in the U.S. And what they did is we had a friend of mine we called a professor. He's a graduate from Stanford. He came up with the vacuum sealer with gas purge, which is used by the food industry for ages, for decades. I mean, since before the 70s. And what they do is they have a machine that you can get them in 20-inch. You can get them from 20-inch, 25-inch, 30, 35-inch, 50, and they're anywhere from $3,183 or $8,250. And what they do is you pack the weed in fresh. They suck the air out, and then they inject it with nitrogen. The nitrogen keeps it fresh. Then it would get sealed again and then shipped. Sometimes it would be shipped and you wouldn't get it for 6 months or 9 months, but it'd be fresh as the day that it was shipped. And in Honolulu, in Hawaii, they had like pucks that fit in a macadamia nut can with a red dragon, a gold, a dragon on label on top that said happiness. And that was vacuum sealed and nitrogen packed. And I used to get like 20, 30 pounds of that at a time. And I would take about a year, maybe a year and a half selling it because it was $6,400 a pound. So it would take me a while to sell it, but I sold it all in about a year. And the stuff was always fresh as the day it was packed. So here you have the industry, buying all this expensive equipment when all they needed to do was buy vacuum sealing, gas purged equipment, and their stuff would be fresh as it was packed. And when you test the stuff that's vacuum packed and nitrogen sealed against the stuff that's fresh frozen, you can't even compare it. And you can't smoke the stuff that is vacuum packed. So they sent people out here to treat the assassins and all this stuff out of Amsterdam because they have the research and they put together a bunch of information, making it like if Frenchie was anybody on the dope scene. He wasn't on the dope scene. He wasn't packing, 50 tons of weed to ship to the States and having to pack it in a way that it arrives fresh. So we solved that problem in the 70s. So now here it is 2020, and the Dutch are having you buy industrial size fresh freezers and freezers lockers to keep them in that are hundreds of thousands of dollars when all they needed was vacuum sealing nitrogen gas purged weed. All they need to do is copy what we did in the 70s today, and they could keep that stuff fresh for 2 years and not have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the people who are getting into the business now, the corporate people, they have no clue about making hash. They have no clue about weed. In fact, they don't even get high. So they're taking all this information from Holland, and as we all know, the information from Holland is skewed. It's skewed. I mean, they left photoperiodic control out of the grow books. That's biology 101. But and then another thing is that in Grow magazine, Robert Connolly Clark came out with Ice Hash, an article about hashish with old pictures and everything, and just pushing the bags again, because people are getting smart and realizing that if they sieve the hash and if they use tumblers and clean out and just separate the plant matter from the trichomes, that they can make hashish better than people can make what do they call it? What these kids are smoking nowadays.
The rosin.
Not rosin, the other one. The shatter. That's made with butane. Rosin, the people who use rosin are using the material made from using the bags, which is at 30% less of what it should be as far as quality. And you figure out, why would the rosin people, use an inferior product to make oil, to make their rosin, right? And the stuff that they're using, it comes out, decent, but it's not excellent. And the reason that they're doing it is because if everybody sieved their product, and then made hash, right? They wouldn't even need to make it into rosin, because the hash is going to be stronger than the rosin that they're making. So that would cut that whole rosin scene out of the industry. So of course they're looking to protect their interest in their machines. But as people are getting hip to really knowing how to make cash, right? Of course, those people are going to end up, you're going to end up being stuck with equipment that at one point nobody's going to want to buy. Now, you got these farms that are coming here, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment that they can't even use. That just ruins the product. So nowadays in the dispensaries, you really have to have like a dispensary that very, very well, like in California and Oregon, or maybe a dozen places that you can buy decent weed from. In Oklahoma, I've yet to find a place that really sold first class weed. Well, I haven't looked around much. I don't go into dispensaries. I grow my own. But yeah, the quality of weed has gone down the toilet, and everything looks the same. It's these tight buds. It has nose. It has the look. It has the bikini look, trim, but don't get you high. What's the point? And now the people today they are staying away from flower because they really don't even know what real flower is, and buying a rosin and shatter, right, to get the a high that's not even anywhere close to a pure hash high. So it just makes sense that if you sieved all the material, first of all, from the very get, they give you false information. They tell you that to wait until the resin glands are 50% amber. Well, why would they do that when they're 50% amber? That's 50% degradation, and the THC has turned into CBN. So what it does is give you a couch lock where you're stoned and you're stupid and you can't function. So again, the weed that is being sold and today, yesterday I was at a friend's house. He showed me a bag of weed. He gave me some buds. It didn't work for me. It looked beautiful, smelled nice, but it didn't get you high. You know what I mean? So I showed him, and because my buds are really different than anybody else's. They're real flowers, and they really have, taste. They really have aroma. They really have pungency. So to try to compare the two, there is really no comparison, and I can show you, hold on. Oh. It hasn't really been trimmed yet.
I like the jar. The jar.
That's the kind of bud I want, man. You know what I mean? That's the kind of bud that I want. Anyway, this is still curing. So people nowadays don't even know what weed is. And so they have this look, it has to look a certain way, it has to taste a certain way. So they're being like regimented. They're being told what looks good, what they should be smoking, what it should taste like, you know what I mean? It's like wild. It's like it's almost like if we have to come back onto the scene to unbrainwash people, because people like brainwash. And then, like the bud that I just showed you is a sativa bud, and it's a THC bud, THCV bud. So the THCV is an anti-anxiety drug as an anti-anxiety cannabinoid. So when people smoke sativas, a lot of times it's so strong, it's racy. They get speedy, they get paranoid, they get a little they get some anxiety. The THCV bud, like that bud I just showed you, it has anti-anxiety. You have no anxiety from this bud. It just gets you really mellow and really high.
What strain was that showed you? You just
That
showed
was a sour goo, which was a sour diesel, half gooey, OG, bred to my THCV plant. So now, when you smoke that plant before, if you smoke too much of that weed, it put you to sleep for PTSD. But now that gives you energy and really has pain relief, and people really, really like it, and people like to get high. They don't want to be. A lot of things that are said about sativas, it gives you anxiety. It does this, it does that. And guess what? They've never even smoked a sativa. You know what I mean? I have people tell me that they've never seen a male plant.
you know.
What do you
I
mean?
think
You've never seen a male plant?
I think the reason why a lot of people haven't smoked fucking good sativas is there's not enough connoisseurs growing them. I know the marks. I think there would be people out there that would definitely enjoy them, and I'm one of the people that has argued the point. Honestly, get kind of against growing sativa just because of the production. You know what I mean? It's an unfair market. You can put a nice long flower and time sativa up against any indica or hybrid, and you're not going to get that extra dollar that you put into it for the extra time in growing it. Is the bummer of the long term sativa.
Well, the thing about the long-term sativa, you get more production. You get more. Now, you don't get less, you get more. Your plants are bigger. Sativa plants are much bigger plants. I get buds as big as my arm.
Nice.
It depends on whether you grow indoors or outdoors. And then if you grow indoors, there's ways of growing it indoors where you can grow bigger plants. See, they've taught everybody to do seas of green and make it everything easy and that's not the way to grow. That's the way to grow, like the Dutch way, which costs you more money. But the way to grow is to grow bigger plants. And so I have one guy, he works for the Trans High Corporation, and he tells me all the time. He says, "Man, I try to explain to these people that if they grow bigger plants, less plants, but bigger plants, right? They'd get more weed." Now, this is a guy who was a Brotherhood grower in the 70s. He grew up in a Brotherhood commune. He grew up in. He's been smoking blueberry since before the guy who considered, what's it, DJ Short, ever even saw blueberry. Okay, that was a Brotherhood strain. So there's all misconceptions about people who grow. I mean, and you have those misconceptions because people have been growing wrong. I mean, people who have been growing 18.6, right? People who've been growing 18.6, and when people come on to me and they give me their light schedule, this is my answer to them. I said, you're growing in a schedule that would need 2 suns to be able to grow outdoors. 18.6 adds, when you figure it out on a computer, it comes out to 1.2 suns. There's no such thing as a 0.2 of a sun. You either grow under 1 sun or grow under 2 suns. But when you see that equation, that should tell you immediately that something's fishy. And the reason that people don't notice it, they just go by whatever they think works, right? That's not the case now. Whatever they did before in the past doesn't work. People are going out of business because they can't keep up with their electric bills. So you have all these people that are here in Oklahoma. People are going out of business. You look in the there's a thing here where they sell used equipment. There's so many farms here that are for sale, and so many businesses here that are for sale, and so many shops that opened up that have closed. Right? All this is happening in Oklahoma, and they for the first couple of years that it was legalized, there was a lot of money being made, and then the bottom fell out of the market. And you can't, in Oregon, outdoor is going for 150 to 250, and indoor is going from like 500 to like 600. And in Oregon, we had a lot of people from out of state. We've had 8 different kinds of groups of investment people, and been 8 different investment groups that come through the scene in the past 10 years that it's been legal. The last scene was these kids from out of state that came there and said, we're going to grow a bunch of hemp, and we're in the middle of the hemp, we're going to grow wheat. Well, okay. The first year you got away with it. The second year you didn't. Everybody got busted. Everybody got shut down. Now you can drive through Southern Oregon and you can just look at all the farms that have been shut down. So finally, the kids who came in to try to make $1 million, it couldn't, kill the scene totally in Oregon. And the same thing has happened in Oklahoma. People are coming in and they don't know what they're doing. So only the professionals survive. But you know what? None of these corporations know what they're doing either. There is a market out there for really excellent craft weed, and people will pay for the real stuff. So, and the thing about sativa buds are big. I mean, the only way to market sativas are to be selling it in quarters, halves, and ounces, and maybe roll-ups, pre-rolls. You know what I mean? Because you can't break a big bud that weighs a half an ounce into little pieces so that so you can buy a little piece. No, sell it in a half-ounce flower. People are going to have to get used to buying flowers. Back in the day, I used to get Jamaican lamb's bread that came in big buds, and it actually fit in a box of roses, like a box of roses. That you would give your girlfriend for a present, a box of roses. And those boxes we used to pack that Mexican in. Those buds were huge from Michoacan and Culiacan and Jamaica. They had great stuff. And so people back in the day, showed them that little bud that they sell in the stores, they'd laugh at you. They've changed the whole market to buy Dutch crap. So people don't even know what good weed is. And now, because none of these people who they clone stuff to death. So by the time you're growing, getting the weed, it's been cloned for 10 years or 20 years, dude. There's no freshness there. There's no blood. I mean, it's like, what do you expect? And so the market is really unsophisticated, and the buyers are unsophisticated. You have buyers that they don't know what to buy. You know what I mean? And I saw it the other day. They were selling this weed wholesale, I think for between $650 and $850 boxes, what they call them. And they gave me some. I checked it out. They had really fancy packing. You know, they're packed in like pre-sealed bags with names on the bags of the company and stuff. Fancy, expensive bagging. You opened it up. It looked good, smelled good. You know what I mean? Tasted good, but don't get you high. Why is that? Well, they've mixed hemp into weed, into drug plants. There was a study in 1970 at the University of Toronto where they bred a landrace hemp plant to a landrace drug plant. And in the F1 generation, it lost potency. It gained in the hemp, it gained 50% THC. And in the drug plant, it became 50% hemp in the first generation. So these kids have been mixing this stuff so much, and the Dutch mixing everything up so that somehow one day they can say they own it all. What you're smoking nowadays is really basically crap. You really have to. In Oklahoma, there might be a half a dozen or so places, or maybe a dozen places that sell decent weed. And then all these places are now corporate owned, and they don't get high. All they want to do is put stuff on the shelf that they can sell. I went to one place and big facility, and he had a lot of people working for him, and he had a perpetual grow. And he had a lot of people working for me. He says, "Oh yeah, the community depends on me," and all this other kind of stuff. I said, "Well, what is the community going to pay your electric bill? Is community going to pay your payroll?" When I looked at this guy's payroll, I couldn't. I just couldn't even imagine having to have that much responsibility for people that basically, half of the jobs are not even needed. My friend brought he has a big truck. In the truck, he has his trimming equipment. It gets between 85 and 90%, between 80 and 90% of the flower comes out very nicely cleaned. It just takes a little scissoring on the top to clean it up. And he brings the price of trimming down to $75 a pound. Now these guys are getting like 100 to 125, 150 a pound for trimming. How can they afford to pay somebody that much for trimming if you can only get $500 a pound or $1,000 a pound? If you're getting $1,000 a pound wholesale, you can't be spending 150 on trimming. You know what I mean? So, and not only that, they have a perpetual grow. So they have people on board trimming all the time. You know what I mean? So it scares me to even think of what this guy's payroll is, and he has all this going on, and he's probably not making any money, but just about paying for itself. But there's going to come to a point where that's not going to work either, because the price is never going to come up again. It's going to stay down. And only really, really top quality stuff. And these guys don't have it. You know what I mean? They don't have it. One guy told me that he paid $3,000 to a guy to be able to sell his strain. When I heard that, you could have knocked me over with a feather, because what he had was shit that anybody else could buy clones from in California and have. You know what I mean? The 10 years ago when the Emerald Cup was legit, they were selling hundreds of thousands of clones. Man, people were coming from all over the country and buying clones and from the Emerald Cup and then shipping them home. I had some people in Detroit that they made a lot of money. They would buy the clones for like plants for like $10, maybe even cheaper if they bought a lot. And then they take them back to Detroit and selling them for 50, $75 a plant. They were making money. They were minting money. Only problem is that when they did that, they brought the russet mite from California to Michigan. So all the plants, everybody has them. Now you have a russet mite problem in Michigan. This is going back a few years. They may have cleaned that up because they're not doing that anymore. You can't go to California and buy that many clones and truck them out to the east, like you did when the Emerald Cup was working. So you have all this fraud, and then I'm amazed. I go there. This is a hash making facility. He's got a $30,000 fresh freezing machine. He's got a huge walk-in refrigerator that he keeps his sealed packages in. And then the packaging that he seals it in is cockamamie. Yeah. He spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and puts the packages of stuff in cheap bags. You know? I mean, just like crazy shit, you know? And so I went in there and I was looking at it, I was amazed, and that's just on that. That's not counting the equipment that he bought from Frenchy Cannoli for separation, the machines, the washing, the this, the that. The guy spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he doesn't know how to make cash. And a guy that I know has like pounds and pounds and pounds of that ice hash that don't melt. When the people start making real hash here and start making Sibs hash here, it's gonna kill those people are gonna be stuck on whatever they got. So then their idea is to keep it fresh frozen in the refrigerator, right? Until they sell it to a laboratory to process it, right? And then he says, I don't put any money into whatever I grow, I collect, I pack it up, and I sell it to a processor. I don't know who's buying it. There's some really bad quality oils and bad quality shatters. There's just bad quality stuff. All these people who came into this industry here in Oklahoma had no clue how to make any of this stuff. They had no clue about growing. So they're all going out of business now. And you're getting they in a way, Oklahoma killed the market. But you know what? In the way, it was the Asian people have taken over a large portion of the market because they're selling basically commercial weed. It may look better, it may smell better, but it don't get you high. So what's the point? And sort of they're low quality indoor and outdoor stuff that they sell for a cheap price has basically taken over the market of pressed Mexican weed. People don't understand because they're not old enough to realize how good Mexican weed was back in the day. Every state in Mexico had their own flavor. And so yeah, it's become like the new Mexican as the commercial stuff that the Asians are selling. It's cheap enough, and that you have to have a more commercial grade of weed to be able to sell it to people who can't afford the good stuff. But now they separated the good stuff and everything else. Like I tell you, if you go out on the market, I think you would find less than 10% of the stuff was decent. In California, you have a higher percentage of getting a better weed. It's funny, the states that have been made legal and are being taken over by the corporate scene, their quality of weed is down the toilet. But there are other people that's underground that are selling good weed. And now in some places, like in Massachusetts, you can get good weed off the street that's better than you can get in a dispensary. It's like that in California too. It's like that in Oregon too. Oregon got really bad. Their whole industry there is in flux, and only the really top shops will be able to survive. And the same thing here in Oklahoma. There's an article in Grow magazine about ice hash and continuing to use the bags, written by Robert Connolly Clark. Oh, isn't he the guy that finally admitted that he was a law enforcement scientist in Grow magazine? So here's you got a guy, and he whatever he said, because when I started talking about sieving, how sieving is better, all you have to do is do it yourself. Have a tumbler, tumble off some weed, take the same weed, put it through bags, and then take the stuff that you tumble, make that into hash, and you take the stuff that you ran through bags and run it through your rosin press, and the hash that you made with the sieving technique will be 10 times better than the stuff that you made from the rosin that you made from the bags. So they came out with the whole thing. It amazes me that finally, that they come out and finally admit who they are, right? That even anybody takes them seriously, because, I don't know, I'm not impressed with them, but maybe these younger kids are impressed with them. Certainly the Bubble Man is impressed with them. I wrote that article, Bubble Bag's Biggest Cannabis Consumer Fraud in History. I could have gotten paid not to write that article. That's how the Dutch play, and I worked for a company, O'Keefe, and they made the finest quality sieving tumblers made, and they had them in different grades. And so they had me promote their products with them. And I gave a lot of those machines away to people. I had a lot of machines, and Mila came out and bought them out. They don't want anybody making that equipment unless it's Dutch. They want to make cannabis like tulips. They want to be able to control every aspect. They want you to go to Colombia and smoke Dutch weed, Dutch tree. They want you to go to Jamaica and smoke Dutch tree. So, the information from one scene, from the smugglers' side of the game, hasn't come into this scene. So a lot of tricks, a lot of things that we did, because we had the same problems back then that you have today, as far as packing, and that hasn't crossed over yet. Hopefully it will. But once people sieve it, get a tumbler, sieve it, use that either to make hash, or you just use that for rosin. Then use the same material and from ice bags, and then make it into rosin and match them up. If they did that, people would stop buying bags. People would stop buying rosin machines. There really is no reason for a rosin machine. Not if you can make great hash. I've had hash that completely melts. I mean, I have to keep it in the refrigerator to be able to handle it. You never could put it in your pocket And and if you put it in a container, you'd have to freeze it before you could take it out of the container. So, so it's funny, it's funny, and I have yet to see anything as strong as the stuff that we had then, as clean as the stuff that we have now. Then, now, man, it's a whole mishmash. When you go from one state to another, the rules change. Like here in Oklahoma, it's a medical scene, so you have to have a medical license and everything. But yet, it's a medical scene, and you have to have a medical license to be able to buy weed legally. Yet, the state of Oklahoma says that there is no difference between medical weed and weed. Right now, you got to remember that for 10,000 years, cannabis was a medicine. It was a medicine up until 1940. What are they talking about? I have strains that lower your blood pressure. I have strains that you use it against to prevent diabetes too, obesity, controls your hunger, anti-anxiety, antibiotic. I mean, the list goes on and on. What do you mean that there has no medical effect? If it didn't have a medical effect, it wouldn't be in the pharmacopoeia of India, the Mahabharata, 6,000 years. It wouldn't be in Chinese pharmacopoeia, 6,000 years. It wouldn't be in Latin pharmacopoeia, hundreds of years. The only thing I have to say about Thailand is they took my book, and when they looked at the book, they realized that what I said was true. How can they? How can their patents be any good if it's public domain in the Mahabharata for 6,000 years? And Nepal can do the same thing. All those countries, Pakistan can do the same thing. They've been selling. Here you have Oklahoma saying, there is no medical use. It's all the same, right? Dude, they've been selling medical tinctures from English pharmaceutical companies up until the 1970s. And then up in the 60s, they had a farm in Afghanistan where they grew their own indica that they use in their indica tinctures. So, I mean, cannabis is a very important medicine in Ayurvedic medicine. Same thing in Chinese. And for them to be able to say that there's no medical use for cannabis is like basically stupid. It's stupid. And I'm living in the land of stupid. Oklahoma is not the brightest place in the world, but it has great laws where I can brand and do my thing, and but it's not, smoke a joint, go to jail. I spoke to a guy today. He's helper to the friend of mine who's working on my house. He got probation for 8 years for stems and not even a joint's worth of weed. And he was in a house with a bunch of people, right? And everybody who was in the house, that lived in the house, was responsible for that little weed. And they all got probation. Now, if that happened because they changed the law to legal, that wouldn't happen now. But that's how stupid this place was. When they went to a house, they found anything in there, they charged everybody. They put everybody on probation. It's kind of crazy shit. So, when you live in a country that made cannabis illegal, when it was the most important medicine of all time, and made all the fortunes for Lilly, Parker Davis, Pfizer, all those big companies that are huge today, huge conglomerates all over the world, Pfizer, Lilly, you know what I mean? Made their initial fortunes in that. There's just no way they're not gonna try to control that drug, and the way they're controlling it is they're pushing weed that has no medical effect. It has very little medicine in it. All the cannabinoids, all the terpenes have been removed. So you get a kind of weed that's THC pure and doesn't have the full cannabinoid profile. That's not the weed that you want. You know, you want full spectrum cannabis. You want everything that it came with, that Mother Nature put in it. You don't want these idiots they're taking the all the cannabinoids and the terpenes out, while at the same time they're giving you a pure THC product that doesn't really get you high, just makes you stupid. And then they're making shatter and all these pure products on top of that to give you a stronger effect, which no one ever needed. Hashish is so damn strong if you make it correctly that you don't need anything more than that. You know what I mean? So the whole industry is based on fraud, lies, deceptions, and control of the cannabis media and cannabis information, and that's why 12-in-1 works. Now, if you go to Apollo timers and you look at all their schedules in there and on their machines, you'll see 12-in-1. It's gone mainstream. They've been using 12-in-1 since 1920. It's in the biology 101. Every college book where you take biology, it's in there. Nelson's greenhouse management operation. That was left out. Those guys think we're all stupid, and a lot of people you are. You've never opened up a horticultural book in your life, and you're going by what High Times tells you. Now, High Times, the only thing that they're doing is selling you equipment you don't need. Imagine walking into a facility and they've got like hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment that's useless. I mean, I go there, I say, well, I would do this differently. I would vacuum pack this and purge it with nitrogen to keep it fresh. They've been doing that in the States here for years. They invented that equipment, the seal. When you go buy a bag of potato chips, it's all air sealed in there. It has a little nitrogen in it. When you open it up, that disperses, but it keeps your potato chips fresh. It's a standard operating procedure in the food industry. Is the nitrogen purge or packaging that's been sealed for freshness. They even do Coke with it. And if you ever get pharmaceutical Coke, there's May and Baker, right, on it, and it's been vacuum packed. And when you open it up, it lifts out because that's the first time the air has gone in, because it's sealed without air, right? And it's before they used to have coffee cans that were vacuum sealed, and then when you opened it up, you had a little poof because you let the air in. That's the same kind of technology that you need to put into the cannabis industry, because not only is it cheaper, it's better. It's just better. And when you open up the product, I mean, I have seen bottles of Coke that were made in the 1950s and in the 60s, and they had the dates on them. And you know how when the stuff goes out of date, they normally just throw it away or give it away or sell it or backdoor or whatever. And I've opened those bottles up, and they were just as good as the day they were packed, dude. So the packing is very important with cannabis, and you've got to bring in the food industry methods into packing, because otherwise you're going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for nothing, because eventually I will have taught everybody these techniques, and there'll be people that will start doing them and will make all their equipment obsolete. They bought a bunch of equipment that's obsolete. Why do you need a freezer, an industrial freezer that they use to hang meat on, to keep your fresh frozen stuff that, by the way, changes the profile of the weed? You know, you take the stuff, again, I'm going to repeat, take your stuff fresh frozen and take the stuff that's vacuum packed nitrogen sealed, and the vacuum packed nitrogen seal will be 30 to 40% better and will look better. You can smoke it, you can sell it. It just, you know, and then you can also process it. When you process it, you get a good product out of it when you process it. But why do you need to even process it when you can make hash that knocks your eyeballs out? I've got hash that people come here and smoke my hash that I make with my machines, the original isolate extractor. They tell me they've never been that high in their life, and these guys do bladder shatter and all that stuff all the time because that's what they're used to. They've never seen or even looked at a real piece of hash that's been done correctly, the whole method correctly. Sans bags. Bags were invented to basically, they've been adding bags to the original machine since 1997. And the Dutch have been selling nylon at wedding dress prices that basically dilutes your recipe 30%. I have a picture. You can go to Facebook, and it's Joe Pietri 12-in-1 Advanced Growing Techniques. You go to that page. I have pictures that'll show you the separation of the water floating on top of the oil and the oil on top floating on top of the resin glands. That oil slick in the middle, you lose when you use bags. You use it, you lose it. You'll touch the inside of your bucket or whatever you're using to make it, and it'll be sticky. That's where your dope is. So they actually came out, and this is a good thing for everybody to see. I'll say something, and they'll come out and try to cover up what I just said. They've been doing that to me since 2004. 2004. They've been doing that to me for like 18 years. They've actually paid magazines not to print my stuff because I'm the one that's exposing them and telling you the real techniques. I mean, imagine I'm walking into this hash factory. And you know, I've run real hash factories, and I've run hash from a lot of different countries, and I see all this equipment, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I was in Pakistan or in Afghanistan and I showed them that, they'd laugh. They'd laugh. You know what I mean? And so they have all this misinformation, and so now you have the big companies that are going with the Dutch way and buying into all that bullshit that all they need is just basic food technology, food packaging technology that's used every day here in America. That's it. I mean, for me to go in there and see all that equipment thing, man, I wish they gave me that money. You know what I mean? And I have a friend of mine that sells that equipment, and he knows that what I say is true. And he says, well, you know, but he's selling that equipment. So he has a vested interest in selling those big machines, but basically they're completely useless. So, you know, I've been working on a THCV line. I've got like about 9 strains that I have that have the THCV in it, that appetite suppressant and all that. I'm going to start putting those out. If you go to my website, growlikejoe.com, you can order your nutrients there. I just want to tell you, I've been growing. You know, I just got off the phone with this guy. He owns a gas station in Thailand, and he gets high. He likes to smoke pot. That, I guess that figures that because he does that, he thinks he's great, and I'm a great grower, and whatever I do is great. And so I talked to him, and I've been growing in Asia since 1970. My first crop was in Kathmandu in Nepal, Boda, and I had Acapulco Gold seeds. I couldn't make them grow. The monsoon killed them, and so I bred that Acapulco Gold with the Laotian, and it made it through the rainy season, and I was able to harvest. The any seeds that you bring to Thailand has to be able to withstand the monsoon. So I would buy. I have seeds from Kerala, South India, that's in the monsoon. Those are monsoon seeds. They grow in the monsoon, and those would be good. Those would be perfect. And what I've done is I bred them to all my other strains, so that they're from monsoon strains, so they survive the monsoon. But the Dutch are just putting bad stuff on the market there. They're going along. They're supporting it. The GW Pharmaceuticals came out with a report that they show to all the states, they show to all the countries, that says that anything above 5% THC is dangerous. And that's what they show to companies. 15, 18% is off the hook. So eventually, that's where they're coming at you. Now, how can they do that without, well, they're mixing it with hemp, they're doing this, they're doing that. I mean, they have pot. The Dutch, imagine they've bred a pot that only has 2% THC so that they can grow it under the law in Thailand. Well, you can't get high on that. You can't have a medical effect on that. They're making oils from that. Here they make oils from pure products. You have to have a pure product to make good oil. I just made some tincture, and I made it with a THCV, and it's just energizing. It takes away your hunger, but at the same time, it really kills your pain. So the pain killing effect is very, very strong. I like it because it's like get up and go. It's get up and go, and so I like it a lot. And it's the kind of thing I like to take every day. Just take a spoonful every day with my coffee. Cheers me up. So it's like in Laos and in the up until the 1950s, Laos had Thailand had a opium law there. You could register as an opium addict, and they gave you as much opium as you needed. Opium was sort of legal. You got like a card, like a marijuana card. You got an opium card. Same thing. They had one in England too. Laos opium smoking has always basically been accepted. But the Thai would eat weed. They'd take a bag of weed, and they take some weed buds, and they put it in a little con sack, and they would make this like chicken noodle soup, happy soup they call it. And they would soak the bag of buds in the broth, and then for lunch, it's like the typical lunch in Thailand, typical lunch in Laos is this marijuana soup. So things were a lot looser up until around 1980. That's when they started getting really tough, and that's when Reagan came in. Things got out of hand. But now the Thai, they're trying to sell weed that's 2%. I mean, you know how strong that Thai weed was back in the day? I mean, it was like wholesale for as high as $2,400 a pound. That's $5,000 a kilo. Thai weed back in the day was going from anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 a kilo. The Thai weed was tremendous. I used to sell Thai sticks, just a stick. If somebody came over and wanted a stick, $20. So the $20 stick, there would be like 22, 24 sticks in an ounce. It was just little gold Buddha weed sticks. So an ounce, I'd get like, 220, 240 an ounce. For 26, no, I would get, I'd get, no, I'd get like $400 an ounce, over $400 for an ounce of weed, just selling it by stick. I mean, but there's nothing that compares to it today. Now the whole attitude of the industry leaves a lot to be desired. But for people who know real techniques, who know how to make real hash, who know how to make real tinctures, who know how to really grow weed, really know what good weed is like, there's a market for those people. There's a market for the people who take the time and grow a solid sativa. There are some sativas that finish faster, but you know what? If you start doing my methods of veg and my methods in flower, everything goes faster. So what they say would be 10, 12, and 14 weeks is 10 weeks. The flowering time in Thailand is very, very fast. Once it goes into flower, it's very, very fast. So you just have to replicate that flowering time. You can't replicate it doing 12 and 12. You have to do either on the on Thai weed. If I had some Thai weed going indoors, I would do 7.5 hours of light, because that's the most it'll ever get. Period. And even in the equator, that's all it'll get in the equator. All told, they told me today in the equation, oh man, but it's raining here more in Laos and in Thailand. I said, well, you have to have seeds that are monsoon friendly, and you have to be a farmer to really know how to grow there, right? And he says, well, all the Thais believe that they're natural born ganja growers because they're from Thailand. None of those people have ever grown weed in their life. They're living, working in the city and stuff. To be a farmer in Thailand, not everybody's pick of of jobs. But everybody thinks that they're this. Everybody thinks that they're that. Right now, there are two scenes, one from Washington State and one from California, that have contacted me. They've got contracts to go and teach ganja growing in Thailand. One of them has a contract with a school in Chiang Mai, and another one has a contract in a school right outside of Bangkok. So they're going out there and these are people that I've trained to do 12 and 1, and I've trained to do flowering, 6 to 7.5 hours of flower. So they're coming out, but they're basically want to be able to grow outside. Everybody who grows in Thailand grows outside. Nobody grows indoors. Dutch seeds don't work. They don't work. You got to get seeds that are indigenous to monsoon. You have to have seeds. I've learned that in 1970. You can't take Acapulco seeds and bring them to Thailand, think you're going to grow Acapulco gold. That's not how it works. So they have some things to learn too. But yeah, I've got 2 teams that are going out that they're going to teach the Thais how to grow. The Thais are real obstinate. They think, who are you? You're a Western guy. We've been growing weed out here for 6,000 years, yada, yada. But you've yourself have never grown any weed. So what are you talking about? So there's a big of a learning gap here that hopefully some of these teachers will be able to overcome. Because the Thais are real obstinate. They think because of the reputation of the Thai weed from back in the day, they don't understand that the best Thai weed that was grown back in the day was supervised under American people, were actually running the farms. You know, I had one friend of mine that he actually paid a warlord off to be able to grow his crop in Burma. So he paid money to grow the crop there, grew the whole crop in Burma, had it cured and everything, dried and everything there, packaged, and then shipped out to him in Thailand, where he eventually took it out. But that's the kind of power that the Americans had there on that ganja scene, because they had the boats, they had the money, they had the Thai scene didn't last very long. It was like a billionaires boys club. There was just a few people that were in on the scene. There was a few suppliers, and there was a few people that did certain things. It wasn't a hard scene to shut down because there was only maybe a half a dozen major figures, you know, and they all went to jail. One of my buddies did 30. Brian Daniels did nearly 30 years. My other buddy from Stanford, he did 6 years, and he did a bunch of years in Thailand. Then he did another 5-6 years in the States. And it was funny because he was doing an air freight scam. Air freight scams are quick, but they're tricky. You have to, be very, very careful. And anyway, he got caught with the manager of Thai Airlines and the colonel from Sativa Air Base and all this naval base and all these people. And they gave him a bunch of years. He started some businesses inside the prison and put people to work, and had he had a couple of toy factories. He produced all these toys that they sold the stores in Thailand. And the king pardoned him. Now, in those days, he was one of the few connects that you could go to get anything done. So people would go to Ban Quang, which is the main jail in Bangkok, Ban Quang. And when you wanted to see somebody, there was a room. On the other side of the room was all like screened off, but you could basically see one another. And so they'd come there and it'd be people screaming at each other to try to communicate with the people who were, that were inside, and the people outside. It was a mess. But a lot of people would go there just to get the connection from this guy. And when the king pardoned him, he managed to send 50 tons to California, and it made it. So he got out of Thai jail, got this deal in, and came back to America, had 50 tons in his pocket, and he had to pay one of the Thai generals. So he took some money down to Vegas. In those days, you could go to Vegas, turn in a bunch of money, gamble a little bit of money, and then go in and demand the rest of your money in a check, and they give you a check right there. That's how people used to launder their money. Except this time, the FBI was behind the thing, and they got him for money laundering. He never spoke a word. And meanwhile, he was in jail, but he never got out. He was in jail for like at least 5 years before he got out. 6 years, something. Not more than that. Well, he had 50 tons on the street in New York, and not in California, which got sold. And when I did see him years later, I said to him, man, I heard all about all the shit that you did. I said, man, on all of that, what were you left with? And what he told me was a lot less than what he would have made if he would have been on the street. But one of the things about him that I really admire is he was in jail in Vegas, and the only decent food that he could get was cans of tuna fish and crackers. He ate tuna fish and crackers for 1.5 years. My buddy, he ate a lot better in Thailand, I'll tell you what. And so that Thai scene got shut down really quickly. They busted Brian Daniels with 72 tons of Thai on the Oregon Beaver, right outside of the States, Oregon, the West Coast. And basically that was the last Thai that you ever saw, except for the Thais that A lot of Thai used to come through Mexico. They come through Mexico, and then they get trucked into the States. And so those Thai seeds were introduced into Mexico, and I smoked it because years later, I had an artist friend of mine, and he used to sell me some weed, and it had that Thai taste, that Thai flavor that's so unique, and it didn't have the Thai high. It was good though, but it did have the flavor. But you go to Thailand, you don't get any of those strains anymore because the governments came out and burned them all. They burned all those crops. They burned all the crops in Nepal. That's what the pharmaceutical companies, the drug enforcement, all this stuff, they go overseas and burn crops, destroy crops, do the drug war thing. They're basically the arm of the pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies basically want to be able to control everything. Except in Thailand, they cannot control it because it's in the Mahabharata. But they do control it because they control the amount of THC. So like what I was saying before is that in the future, the amount of THC in the marijuana cigarette will be totally controlled. You won't be able to just twist one up and unless you grow it yourself. The only way to be able to have good weed in the future would be which it has always been, to basically grow your own weed and buy your seeds from Joe. But yeah, that's why I basically all do landrace, F1 from landrace, and I do pre-1972 genetics. I have some pre-1972 genetics bred to my Blue Dragon that I want to get sent to Thailand because those will be very, very, very good in Thailand. I've got a bunch of Indian stuff and a bunch of older stuff that I hit with my Blue from South India that'll do very, very well in Thailand. But I heard that if the police get you with weed that's above 2%, that you could still go to jail. But they have no way of testing it yet. So there's some, the cannabis scene, the cannabis scene, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, gauge, pot, whatever, has come into the theater of the absurd. It was absurd when they illegalized it, the most important medicine of all time. Then when they got the DNA sequencing, now they're trying to control the cannabinoids and the terpenes. They don't want California type scenes starting in England. But they're going to happen though there anyway. They already are happening there now. But another thing, I had a friend of mine. This person who came out to help me. He met this guy, Blue Skies Vienna. The guy never gave his real name. Nobody even knows what his real name is. And so they start talking about skunk this, skunk that, skunk this, skunk that. And I tell him, I said, well, you know what? If you're not at least 50, close to 60 years old, you're not going to know what the real skunk tastes like. I said, this guy, Blue Sky Vienna, he's full of shit. So I had to wait until the guy came to my house. And then he put in Seed Finder, and he put skunk number 1. Just below skunk number 1, there it was, Blue Sky Vienna's skunk. It's not skunk, dude. That pissed off a lot of people. So the only way I could tell this guy, by the way, everything you said is bullshit. And you just can't keep going around and telling people that. Even though 99% of what people come out with about cannabis is complete bullshit. But but I had to teach him that lesson about you can't believe anything that you hear You know, you can't believe anything that you hear. And so, you know, and then I went to this race that I've talked about a couple of times, and the guys into the theater of the absurd. His payroll will kill him. Between his payroll and his electric, it'll kill him. He'll be out of business within a year or two. It's just not going to happen. And the problem is, I can't go there and say, "Oh, you're doing all this shit wrong." Right? See, what happened here is that the first year that was legalized, the second year that was legalized, you could sell anything here for $4,000 a pound. You know what I mean? It could be Mexican, brickweed, and they could sell it. You know what I mean? That whole scene has changed. Now you really need to know what you're doing. But what? You know? These guys really don't know what they're doing. Okay, that does leave room for guys like you and me to be able to grow quality weed. You know, take your time, grow a great sativa that, you know, grow a one-hit wonder. You know what I mean? You don't need much, and make your good hash. And just basically, eventually, we'll be able to take back control of this market and some parts of it, because people really, really want sativas. They're, you know, the idea of smoking little bits of weed that come in a rock form, and it may smell good, it doesn't get you high. What's the point? What's the point? So the weed market has really, really changed. It's I'll see what happens here in Oklahoma. In Oregon, 8 different groups of investment groups have come in over the years, and now they've killed the whole market. You know what I mean? And California, if you want to buy equipment, they've got warehouses of people who have equipment they'd love to sell you. Don't buy anything. Go to California first and buy some of that equipment. You know, and so there's big changes going to be coming down on this scene. That's what I'm here in Oklahoma. I'm going to be creating my own brands for hash, my own brands for weed, my own packaging for weed. I'm going to do everything like I used to do, and I don't need to sell much. There's a real good market there for people who have the good stuff. There's always people who are willing to buy it, and everything else is irrelevant. You know, we have to be able to grow stuff that we can use and get high with and enjoy. What's the point of buying weed or buying all this stuff if you can't enjoy it? They've taken the fun out of the weed. They've taken the laughter out of the weed. When was the last time that you had China eyes? Where your eyes look like a Chinaman. That's the kind of weed that I want.
That's kind of think everybody wants, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we've got to change the market and get people to start growing good weed and smoking good weed. No doubt, no doubt. But yeah, where are you now? You're in Michigan, right?
Yes, I'm still in Michigan.
Yeah, the scene in Michigan, you can get. Yeah, it's the same, probably the same thing, but there are probably real good medical producers out there in Michigan, because I know I have a couple of people out there that grow really good weed.
Oh, there's a lot of people that grow good weed here in Michigan.
Yeah. High Times has a big organization in Michigan. Trans High Corporation. I have 2 grower friends there. They grow a lot of weed, but they grow quality weed and prepackaged, everything prepackaged, ounces prepackaged, half ounces prepackaged. I'm going to be doing the same kind of thing. Bigger buds, you know, clear tubes, vacuum packed, boom. And basically my top sativas, I'm bringing out my THCV line. If people want to go to growlikejoe.com, they can call me And I don't advertise seeds on my website, but you can call me and we can talk seeds, and I can send you menus. Dripstone has gotten 5 customers, which is pretty much a lot on just one podcast. But I've been growing since 1970, and I always have used Kogo's original cannabis formula, the NASA formula that was brought to Amsterdam in the 80s, in the 80s, and then the Dutch broke it down into 7 different parts. Now you need a bud booster, you need this, you need that. It was a 1-part formula. You had to boil the water, get it hot, then put your powder in, and then mix it. Dripstone is ionic as well. It completely dissolves. It's using the finest products that are available on this planet. If you look at the back of the dripstone, and you see all the ingredients that go in there, not only are they're the finest quality, they're at the pure quality. It's like cannabis blood. It's like if they took a fix of nutrients. It's the only way I can say it. The plants grow faster, and they finish faster, and they get bigger faster. I put it up to advanced nutrients. I put it up against anybody who dares compete with me. They're going to lose. And I had an argument with the guy because I had a sale pending, and I'm trying to get him into dripstone. And the guy talked about living soil. Well, living soil, if you're living at home and you can have compost and you can do all of this and you have the time, it's okay. But this is better. This is the pure form here. This is much better than your living soil. Not only that, I'll produce you. Not only that, I'll twice as much as you can produce. I'll produce from the same plant. I said it's just better, And he was stuck on living soil. You can't do living soil commercially. You can't do it. It's just not, it's just not a viable product for people who are into production, And my dripstone is the same natural ingredients that you would get in living soil, except that it's been supersized. It's in purest form that you can buy. So yeah, I'm willing to put that up against anybody, and price is unbelievable, but the market out there is just saturated with stuff that's so garbage. You know what I mean? If you're gonna, people need to concentrate on one thing: is growing fire at the lowest common denominator. So when you get it to that point, then you can start making money again. Otherwise, it's a free for all nowadays. So it's what it is. I'm glad that Michigan is doing better. Massachusetts is doing better too. You can get better stuff from a medical provider on the street than you can get from a dispensary. It's probably the same in Michigan. There's probably a couple of dispensaries that have really good. When I first started going to Michigan, we used to do the shows at the Rooster Tail, and then we did a show at that. There's a place downtown. It's a barbecue place. It's a dance hall. It's a black-owned block. He has a concert hall. He has this hall. All the Motown was there. Played there at one time or another. And I did a show there. That show was great. The shows at the Rooster Tail, when there were medical shows, those were great. I won 2 awards. I won 2 Buds of the Month from my Cherry OG, and then I also won with my Durban Poison. I really had a lot of fun in Michigan. I haven't been back to Michigan, but I probably will be back because I'll be selling my THCV seeds. But if anybody calls me and goes to my growlikejoe.com page and calls me, I'm definitely ready to cut people loose on some THCV, no doubt. But yeah, this is the latest I've been up at night. Latest I've been up at night. I don't know how long.
And I can tell you, I thank you very much for staying up. Everybody's been enjoying this so far. Even those few that had controversial things to say the first episode are now kind of enjoying round two.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I can tell you first and foremost, I've said this to you on the phone, but as one of the legacies I think you'll leave behind will most definitely be setting the record straight for the life cycle. I know myself and everybody else that has given I haven't heard of too many people that have raised their hand on the flower side, but I know for a fact there's a ton of people driving the 12 and 1 in veg. Yeah. And I can't wait to get back to where I got my flower room going so I can try, the second part of it as well.
You'll find that's the most effective way that you'll ever use in your life. It's so effective. The 6-hour flower, the plants flower faster, flower bigger, and finish quicker. How can you go wrong? I use the 6 hours for indica hybrids and indicas, and then I use the 7.5 for sativas. There's one thing that I hate to pay as an electric bill. I've just put my house is going to be put into solar here soon, so I'll be off the grid. Instead of paying my electric bill, I'll pay a bill to have my solar system there. So I'll be off the grid. I'll be producing on the 22nd of this month. Everybody keep their fingers crossed. I don't think I need my fingers crossed, but I think it'll happen for me. On the 22nd, I get my license here in Oklahoma.
So nice, congratulations.
When I get my license in Oklahoma, I can grow as much as I want, and then I have a production license in a place where I can produce hash and all this stuff. So I'm going to go full tilt boogie, and I'll send you some stuff there too, so you can taste it and all this kind of stuff, and we'll march on, try to inform people, get them wired on the right path, man. Everybody, the only book that you should have for growing is Nelson's Greenhouse Management and Operation. It's Biology 101. It shows you light depth. It shows you photoperiodic control. That's the only book. Stop listening to the idiots out there. I got a real good feeling. I got a really good vibe when I saw that Connolly Clark had to come out in support of his bags. There's no way that anybody who does a dry sieve cannot outperform any of those bags. It's not in the realm. It was thought out wrong. But if you want to sell nylon at wedding dress prices, hey, they've been doing it now since 1997.
So do you have some suggestions for dry sift or sifting equipment? Where should they start?
Well, you need a tumbler. O'Keefe is not in business now, but you need a tumbler. What I'm going to do is I have a 150 tumbler, I'll tumble it. When you use a tumbler, the one of the things that I hate about tumblers, they never put a timer on there. They need to put a timer on there so you can time. You have to time the amount when you're tumbling your product. You got to time it so that you don't start to process green. You'll see at first, for the first 10 minutes, you'll get 15 minutes, you'll get beautiful gold, beautiful gold, beautiful gold. At the point that it starts to turn green, right, you stop. Then I take my stuff from my 150 into my 125, and then I tumble it through there. If there's any green left at all, it'll be left in this tumble. And then the stuff that I get out of the 125 micron tumbler is what I'll press into hash. So you have to get good tumblers. I have a tumbler. I can do 350 grams. I'm going to get bigger tumblers at where I can do 3-5 kilos at a time. The trick about tumbling is that you have to watch over your tumble, make sure you don't process it too much. And some people, like I do, I get these rubber balls like this, and when the equipment is tumbling, because I put buds in there, I don't crush anything up, right? And I put these balls in there, and the balls, break everything up naturally with the tumble, and so it improves my run. But you have to watch the tumble, because there's a point where it starts to process vegetable matter, and that's when you start to see green, right? So you always want to be able to stop before it goes green. Then stop, take your stuff out, then tumble it again, see when it goes to green. When it goes to green, then you stop it, take that out, and then tumble it in the next lower tumble. We'll take all that green out, and then you'll have all the resin gland there. The resin gland is very easy to press. Here, these are the kind of ones that I use now. This is the frame. This frame goes over this like that. Like that. I put the hash in here like that, the resin. I first of all, I take a baggie or something, seal it, and I put it in some boiling water that's been boiled, put the heat off, and I'll stick the baggie in there to get the resin a little bit warm. Then I'll put the resin in here. But what I'll do is I'll take parchment paper. And I'll put it on there, cover it up, the bottom up, put the resin in, then fold the parchment paper over, and then I'll put this on top, and this presses it. So I'll get a plaque that's like this. I can show. Well, I can. I make bigger plaques. I'm going to be making bigger plaques, but I'll show you what a plaque looks like. Can you see it? Can you see it? No. Yeah, but the plaque is thicker, but the plaque is about this size. You can see this, right? And so that's how the plaques look. And so I make little plaques like that. They're a couple inches. There's about a half ounce to a plaque, But I'm going to make a bigger plaque like I did in Pakistan. In Pakistan, they had plaques that were a kilo, and they would. I don't know if you ever saw any Pakistani hash. It was black on the outside, gold on the inside, with a gold seal on it. Have you ever seen hash like that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But basically, that's how you press that. That's the same method. I was in a hash pressing factory. I bought the resin first, and the way you buy resin in Afghanistan is I went up to Landy Kodal of Dada, Bada bazaars, and you go into a room. It's got huge sacks of resin, and you go through the bags of resin, and you grab the bags of resin, and then you squeeze them together. And when you squeeze them together, the resin together, the resin that sticks together is the freshest one. If you have resin that you can't get it to stick together in a clump, then it's older resin. And I used to buy my resin there. And then in the tribal zone, they have a place where they press hash that anybody can rent, but it's for rent. Somebody owns that place, so you pay a little stipend to use that place. And so there was a place there to press the hash. They had a really rudimentary type of way of pressing it. They had a copper pot that was in the ground. Underneath the pot, they would put some charcoal so the pot was hot. They put the resin in there, and then they would beat it with a log, and that had like a hammer, a huge hammer. But it was huge. It was a big log kind of thing, and would bang it, bang it, bang it. And then after it was banged, they would put so many grams in a frame and roll them out and press them. And when we rented that a place to do the pressing, we had bodyguards, like 8 guys with AK-47s, because in those days people could come and rob you of your hash in the middle of the desert, and everybody goes to guns. It's a tribal zone. Everybody there is packing like 18 guns. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful, but it was safe. I was with the tribal chief. There's no one going to bother the tribal chief. I wonder how that area is now. I think about sometimes going back to Peshawar and maybe living there. Food's good, people are good, hanging out. I love the Pakistani people. I love the Pashto people. I love the Afghani people. Afghanistan is sort of crazy, but you know what? There's always been Sharia law. When you go to the Rome, you act like the Romans. You go there and you follow their rules. That's it. I mean, they have rules and you follow them, and everybody gives you the respect. You know what I mean? And basically, I was in Pakistan during Ramadan and Eid and all that. I did all the Ramadan. I fasted. You have to follow the customs of everything. And I have no problem. I could go back there and live now. I think about going back to Nepal, but I hear it's really crowded, really smoggy, food much better. They have intercontinental everything. The World Bank went there and threw all the hippies out and the smugglers out. Me too. And created a World Heritage Foundation fund where everything is like the whole valley of Kathmandu is like one big temple under the Heritage Foundation. The only problem in Kathmandu is that they don't have enough tourists. The Thais, they legalized marijuana in the hopes of bringing their tourism back, because they used to get 40 million visitors a year. Now they've gotten 2 million. They're starving. Nepal, the same. They used to get lots of tourism come in, and now very few come in. But I keep telling the Nepali government, I said, man, make this shit legal. People come here want to smoke temple balls. People want to smoke hash. I said, make everybody who comes into Nepal, if they want to smoke hashish, or they want to buy weed, let them get a license at the airport, $20. A license, and they can come back and use the same license if they come back to Nepal. And they can go to designated areas, designated restaurants, so they can smoke where you're supposed to smoke, don't smoke when you're not supposed to smoke, and basically collect tax on everything from the farmer to the middleman to the distributor to the middleman to the distributors who distributed to the shops, the shopkeepers. Everybody pays tax, and people will feel safe to be able to come back to Nepal and smoke some temple balls, some real ones, not some Frenchy cologne bullshit, a real shit, and hopefully they'll change. But Thailand legalizing like they did, they're legal across the board. But the highest THC content you can have on your weed is 2%. So
Why start so low? Why do you think they're starting so low? I mean, that just
these are
sounds like a
pharmaceutical.
CBD attempt.
I don't know. I can't figure that out. There's it's about control. It's maybe if they have a hot if they have better plants, will lead to a revolution. People's minds that we got to get rid of the cake. I mean, males like they did in Nepal. It started a revolution, but now it's strict. It's stricter than it was before. I mean, it's sort of crazy. Southeast Asia is crazy. I mean, but look at Oklahoma. The guy got 8 years for seeds and stems. Not even enough for a joint. That don't happen today, thank goodness. But still, you have a medical license?
I do.
Yeah, I do too. I always have one. I've had medical licenses since 21 years. I had them in Colorado first, then I had them in Oregon. Now I have them here. If you can get a medical license in this country, do yourself a favor and get it, have it in your pocket, no matter what, if you smoke pot. That's a mandatory thing. Mandatory thing. People who don't follow that rule, they're being very, very stupid. Because that's the only thing that keeps you out of jail. Today, even if, let's say you're in another state and they catch you with some weed and you have a medical card, the most that'll happen is that they'll take your pot away. That's it. They're not going to put you to jail, take you in, take you in front of a judge and say, Judge, I have a license. I got to have my medicine. It's not going to happen. They're just going to take your medicine away. But a lot of places that once you show them a license, they okay, just be cool with it. I in London, the guy who runs Cannabis magazine, I forget his name. Think of it. During the terrorist shit and all this shit, they put dogs and stuff on the tubes, the underground subway system that they have there. And my friend was walking out of the tube, and the police dog alerted to him, and they searched him and he didn't have anything on him. I said, man, I don't have anything on me. I don't know why the dog is alerting. They took him down to the police station and they cleaned out the inside of his pockets. Even though he hadn't smoked pot in a couple of years and he used to smoke pot, he had some little dust or something in his pocket. And that's what the dog alerted on. Incredible. Then another time in London, I was smoking in a car and a guy came over with a greenhouse badge, but on the other side he had a real badge. And when he came over to the car, I said, "Oh, you guys are fun." I said, "Yeah, I'm a medical patient, and I have to have my medicine, and so I'm smoking a little bit." And he says, "Oh, I'm glad that you took that out of the car and out of the hall and didn't smoke it in the hall, and you smoked it here in private in your car." Then he turned his pass around. There was a badge. I said, "I'm sorry, officer. I'm a registered patient, and I'm just taking my medicine. That's what I do every day." He says, "I'm glad that you didn't do that inside. You did it out here. Go about your business." And that was it. I've had the medical card save my ass a couple times. So everybody should always have a medical card, no matter what. You have it. You go to Thailand, you have a medical card. You know what I mean? You already have a medical card. You go to Nepal, you have a medical card. You go anywhere, you have a medical card. Eventually, everything will be recognized. But I know the most important thing that I have, other than my license, is my medical card. So yeah, man, let's do this again one day. What's this?
I was going to say, I'm a big advocate for the medical card too. I really believe that the recreational push is more or less an attempt to erase the idea of cannabis as a medicine, be honest with you. That's why I still carry my license. You know, there's power in numbers, basically, as far as research and everything else. And it's when recreation came through, the numbers of cards dropped. You know, I'd still tell everybody for HEPA rights, just like you're saying, there's a ton of reasons to still get that card, but keep it medicine, show them that it's a medicine. I think that that's like I said, the attempt for recreational cannabis is the pharmaceutical markets just attempt to save their ass. They don't want you to know it's a medicine. They don't want you to know you can heal yourself. And if they can cover that up and turn around and sink their fangs into another market, they can keep pushing you the poison and then turn around and sell you recreational cannabis. It's a win-win for them.
The Nepali government is like an arm of the Drug Enforcement Agency, of the pharmaceutical companies, the enforcement arm of the pharmaceutical companies. They're burning down the fields. That's why they don't have any good weed in Thailand. They burnt down the fields. They destroyed the genome. But anyway, it's getting late.
It is. But I appreciate you coming on. I definitely appreciate what you're doing and getting information out there and helping growers understand the proper life cycle so they can save their ass and keep growing, because power rates are definitely going up, man.
And that's my campaign was direct aid to all growers. Now this is direct aid to you as a grower, because you're getting a light cycles that'll save you as much as 75% of your cost production and up your production 30%. Right. And with that, c'est la vie.
Right on. A couple of things before you go, Joe, please. First of all, I want to make sure and tell you that the link that I sent you is always good, brother. Now that you've done this part of it, it's the same one every time.
Okay.
So anytime there's like a Weed Nerd World episode, there's a Weed Nerd in the title, you're at 100%. You can come in anytime you want.
Beautiful. I'll be on it.
Nice. I appreciate that, and everybody else as well. One last thing I'd like to get from you, I don't think I got last time, is the soundbite. Basically, what I'm looking for, my version, sir, is, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 690. You can say whatever you want before or after that, as long as that's in there. I would greatly appreciate it, sir. I am ready now.
Ciao. You have a good day.
All right.
If anybody wants to contact me, it's growlikejoe.com.
Thank you, Joe. You have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
2 for 2, man. Strike out on that soundbite, man. 2 for 2 strikeout on the soundbites. Oh, well. For those of you that hung out this wonderful episode, thank you so much. For those of you that popped in and didn't like it, well, you're entitled to your opinion as well. I say this as much as I can. The guest has a right to say nobody knows their journey, their story, except them and the people involved. The rest of us can only sit back and decide for ourselves. 100%. I protect their rights to say, or I try to protect their rights to say what their journey is here. And you have your rights in chat to say basically if you believe it or not, And with that being said, it is not about the views. It's about just getting the stories out there. So with that being said, thank you very much for tuning in this evening. I greatly appreciate it. Remember, random acts of kindness do save lives. I am a living, breathing example of that. We sure do got some time left. So give me a minute and we'll be firing up the weed nerd world.